r/askreddit. Ex-convicts of Reddit. Did you find prison rehabilitating? Why or why not? What would you change about the system if you could? I wouldn't say it was very rehabilitating, though it did make me never want to go back. The worst thing they never tell you is that the COs can do pretty much whatever they want to you. You don't really have due process once you're inside. They can send you to solitary confinement whenever they want, move you to the cell of someone who hates you, and look the other way as you get beat up, and nothing will happen to them for it. Most of us were more scared of the COs than we were of each other, though of course there were some good COs. Specific punishments and such vary from prison to prison, but the worst one I always dreaded was dog breath. If someone in our cell did something the COs didn't like, they'd come in, order us to sit with our backs to the wall, sometimes cuffed, and then they'd bring in their canine officer to search the cell. Except, well, she'd search the cell, but spend a long ass time giving us a sniff over too, with her mouth right on our nose, panting heavily. It was absolutely foul. One guy cursed at a CO one day, and the next day our cell was searched, and he spent 15 minutes getting breathed and slobbered on by these dogs until he was gagging and retching. Complaining about the smell was a surefire way to get more of it. Nothing to do about it either. What are you going to do? Complain that they searched your cell? That'd be a good way to earn another canine visit the next day. My stepdad worked as a security guard at a local maximum pen in the country. His fellow guards would fork with the inmates for no reason and treat them like dirt, just cause. He's also a hippie and smokes weed, so he changed to outbound to help the inmates on going back to society. He also just beat 3 into cancers at once and treats my mom good. I have a close friend who is a CO. Took the job because he was in the army too long and had a lot of trouble re-entering society as a civilian, couldn't keep a job himself, etc. Where he's from, it's nothing like this. COs have no real power. They can't move people from cell to cell for no reason. For example, that has to be an admin decision based on, say, space availability, or 2 cellmates get into a fight and have to be moved away from each other. And that takes a written request first from his superior after both are moved to solitary for a cool down. There are cameras everywhere, and the video is reviewed randomly, or if any incident happens at all, so the COS know they're constantly being watched. Everything is scheduled, like dayroom time, and it has to be adhered to unless there's some disciplinary problem, and again, his superior has to approve the change. They get TV time, tablets in the cells, and all the books they can stand. Classes for GED or college courses, and drug rehab group therapy sessions. He tells me stories all the time about COs getting fired for being stupid or even being verbally abusive. They are not allowed to cuss the inmates or insult them. You can't deny them the right to go to medical if they say they're sick, even if you know they're faking. Those are firing offenses. Granted, this is a minimum security county facility, not state, but it's super well run. So, not all prisons are like this, or the stories below, and not all COs are horrible people. My friend is one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet. Most of them are just regular people trying to do a job and live life without becoming homeless, and the prison system pays very well because no one else wants to do it. He says in his facility, they are more like babysitters of adults who have to make sure their charges are always healthy, fed, and have recess, and there's a ton of strictly enforced rules to make absolutely sure no abuse occurs. I'm sorry this happened to you, though. Just wanted to say that there are exceptions, and not all COs are evil. I'm a CO and my prison is like this. We can't decide to move anyone, and can't treat them just any way we please. Now, that's not to say some COs won't be an ass and try to scream and cuss out the men over stupid shit, but most of us try to be as fair and humane to all the inmates as we can. And it is very much like babysitting grown adults. It's part of our job to make sure they have everything they need and are doing what they are supposed to, especially going to class for their JEDs, going to medical when they need to, and going to their jobs. Cameras are everywhere, and you can't just abuse the men and expect to get away with it. You will be fired and more than likely jailed yourself. It was over 20 years ago in Canadian jail and minimum security I was in for cultivation. The only thing mandatory for me was to go to a victims program so that I became aware of the harm I was causing by selling weed. I grew 4 plants at home for me and my brother and never sold any, and was ratted out by a friend of my brother because I refused to sell him weed for 2 reasons. A, he was 15. B, I didn't sell weed. The rest of the time was German cards, no fear of killings or fights. It was quite chill. 2 years for 4 plants that are legal here now. Did 2 years in 2002, 1 year in a for-profit regional jail, and 1 year minimum security state prison. Not rehabilitating in the sense they made any effort to rehab us, but I did go straight to stay out of there. I was 18 and breaking into businesses for the thrill. Hardcore self-destruction. Thought my life was over until I saw how worse the other convicts were. The only services jail offers are JED, church and AA/NA, so any rehabbing is done there. The discipline isn't like the military where they attempt to teach you honor or anything. It's just stand for count and clean your area once a day. I already had a JED, but took it again out of boredom. Prison is a lot better. Counselors teach community college courses and you have a job. Came out with 9 credits. Probation sucks. Get downtown twice a week. Don't have a shy bladder. Keep a job. Go to meetings. Even though I didn't have a drug problem. High stress and a lot of us get indefinite probation which averages 5 years. But I did good. I'm white and middle class, so I was able to blend back into society easy. Waited tables and did community college. My PO let me off probation in 2 years, so I could go to university and ultimately hardly missed a beat. Happily married now with 3 kids, a mortgage and a career I don't hate. Honestly, the biggest motivation for me was watching WB shows in jail and seeing them all go to college. It was like when Mowgli saw other humans and left the jungle on his own. Needless to say, I had an unstable childhood. I haven't been to prison, just in and out of juvie and jail for years. I don't know what was supposed to be rehabilitating. With a lot of the psychological help in juvie they had high staff turnover, so there was never really consistency in progress. A lot of drug programming at both levels was just kind of like desk stuff. And really basic. I've been in a juvie class where another kid was correcting the teacher's apostrophe info. Jails mostly have AA, don't really like AA. A lot of hanging out and playing games and entertaining yourself. It rehabilitated some of my basketball skills, though some of that gets a little dirty for an actual game. It rehabilitated my ability to read books. After the first couple of times, going to juvie or jail never concerned me. Once you've figured the place out a bit, then you can just hang out. I have an uncle who had custody of me as a teen and he invested in me. He rehabilitated me. The system just took me and held me for periods of time, but he did the real work. He got me competent and consistent mental health care. We found a counselor who I connected with. I got my meds sorted out. I got consistent and competent substance help. I got a good education and directed towards a career. He got himself help in how to parent me. He got me to be a regular human by about 21. With greater funding and a change of attitude, I think the system could implement all of that stuff far more successfully. And I think that a big focus on juveniles and young adults would help too. And stop being obsessed with the act of locking people up. Did 4 years in a maximum security penitentiary in Canada. I don't think the institution itself or its programs had any influence on my rehabilitation, but I decided for myself I was never going back. They forced us to take certain programs as part of our correctional plan, such as an anger management course, a course for drug dealers, to tell them to not sell drugs, etc. All of which were a waste of time. You can get your grade 12 education, which I did. The most beneficial thing that was occasionally offered in certain institutions, which is no longer available, was you could do certain trades such as carpentry or drywall, and the hours could go towards an apprenticeship on the outside. It is a huge shame that it was discontinued. If I could change anything, I would implement more programs of that nature that taught skills that could be applied to the outside world and benefit inmates when they are released. Parole and living in a halfway house on release are both extremely difficult things to navigate and are designed to make parolees reoffend. You are thrown in a house with other convicts, prohibited from associating with any person with a criminal record, which in itself is paradoxical. Anytime you leave the halfway house you must tell them exactly where you will be and must call from a landline, no cell phone, every hour to check in and prove you are where you claim to be. Most people don't own a house phone anymore, and payphones are almost non-existent, which makes this very difficult. You can be sent back for the smallest infraction, such as not doing your daily chore at the halfway house, vacuuming, mopping, etc. You are forced to find immediate employment, or can be sent back. Finding a job after being inside for that long can be a very daunting task, especially when certain parole officers demand to meet your employer, or meet you at work, to prove you're actually employed there. Overall, more programs on the outside to help get parolees jobs, perhaps pre-apprenticeship programs and an example, would be hugely beneficial. Most ex-cons who rehabilitate do it with their own determination and conscious decision to leave that lifestyle behind. I don't feel the system itself and resources within it play an impactful part in that. You are forced to find immediate employment, or can be sent back. Finding a job after being inside for that long can be a very daunting task, especially when certain parole officers demand to meet your employer, or meet you at work, to prove you're actually employed there. Overall, more programs on the outside to help get parolees jobs, perhaps pre-apprenticeship programs and an example, would be hugely beneficial. Most ex-cons who rehabilitate do it with their own determination and conscious decision to leave that lifestyle behind. I don't feel the system itself and resources within it play an impactful part in that. I was in California State Prison at 18, sentenced to 4 years for possession of 1 pill of ecstasy in 2006. Prison in California is fucked. You get classified by a points system, and if you are young, single and have no kids then you get more points, which makes your level higher. I have never been to prison, so I thought I would get somewhat of a break and get minimum security, but I did not. I got level 3, level 4 being maximum security. Once you get into prison you must align with a group, usually race affiliated, if you are not in a gang, which I was not. I was a skinny white dude, so I grouped with the other non-gang affiliated white guys Acapulco Woods. In California, everything is very segregated by race and the cops allow it, because in there it really is more peaceful and less violent that way. Very different world. Is it rehabilitating? Fuck no. You have 2 choices in a level 3 or 4 California prison. Do what is requested of you, stab a snitch or a molester/rapist, participate in a riot etc, or you get stabbed. Cops allow it, because they don't like those types of people in there, just as much as we did. However, I was only doing 4 years. What if I kill someone, even if they are a piece of shit, because I don't want to get stabbed and then pick up a life sentence? Doesn't matter. You stab or get stabbed. Anyways, once you put in work you're safe, because you gain respect and honor among the seasoned convicts, and earn some sort of status as someone with heart. Lots of bullshit in there, like a white guy can't share food, or play cards with a black guy, and certain Mexicans depending on gang affiliation etc. They took away all of the trades you used to be able to learn, and all they had was a JED program, which was useless due to my HS diploma. In California, the system is fucked and designed to keep you in. I got out in 2009 and off of parole in 2010 and haven't been in trouble since, and my record still haunts me to this day, even though I'm in a successful automotive career, because I was sent to state prison, and the only way to get that off of my record is to get a certificate of rehabilitation, which is a governor's pardon, and they don't give those out. To me it sucks, because now in CA, possession is a misdemeanor, which means I wouldn't have ever done time in the first place. Shaking my head. Not me, but my boyfriend spent 2 years in jail for drug possession with intent to sell. He just said he played cards and read a lot. No rehabilitation programs. This is a small jail in Florida, not prison. The thing that sucks is that when a felon is released, they have so many limitations placed on them that are so difficult to overcome. It is very hard to find housing or a job that will take on a felon. Luckily he came from a well-off family, so he was able to live at a relative's house and work for his father's company. But if he came from a poor family, his choices would be extremely limited, which is why so many felons go right back to committing crimes. They are trying to survive. This is not my story, this is my dad's. He went to prison 3 different times, but he only counts it as one, since he was only really out for less than a month each time he got out, excepting the last one of course. That's a different story. The last time he went to prison was at Folsom Prison near Sacramento. Yes, from the song. His cellmate was an older man, though. My dad remarked that now, he's older than his cellmate was at the time. My dad was a bit of an arrogant prick, and he was bragging about times he got away with some drug smuggling job. They were playing a game of chess and his cellmate just sighed. Boy, if you ever listen to a word I say, listen to this. You're still young, you got your whole life ahead of you. Me, I'm here for life. Do you understand that? I'm never getting out of this prison. And when I die, they are going to bury me out in that graveyard with a wooden marker over top my body. I burned all my bridges and now there's no one left to give a shit when I die. You're still a kid, but I was your age when I was put in here. Stop being a fucking dumbass and do something with your life if you don't want to be buried underneath a prison. Now move your fucking piece so we can play some chess. He was wrong about one thing though. I've seen my dad cry exactly twice in my life. The second time was last year when we visited Folsom Prison and my dad found out that his cellmate, the man who changed his life, passed away years ago. My dad cried over his death and was probably the only person who did. If that man hadn't verbally slapped my dad across the face, I wouldn't have been born. So yeah, prison can be rehabilitating, but I'm not sure if it's the system that's responsible. Did 30 months in Texas in the 90s. All I learned was to fight better and not to trust anyone, especially guards and cops. But I guess I did get out early because of how much they screwed me.